Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel and today I am finally back with another Storytime video. For those of you who don't know, quite a while ago I filmed a Storytime video all about my crazy roommate experience. And you guys literally loved that Storytime video. While the main focus of that Storytime was the roommate that I lived with, I also mentioned that my landlord was not as nice as I originally assumed. And ever since I posted that video, I have had countless DMs begging me to tell the story of the little old lady who was my horrible landlord. So here I am today to finally tell this story. It was quite a long time ago that it happened now, but I've tried to get all of my thoughts out on paper, but if this story is a little bit mumble jumbled, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to remember things as they come. So sit back and relax and let's talk about the lovely little old lady that I had as my landlord. In the last story time, I called her Linda, and that's what I'm going to call her in this video as well. Also, for those of you who are coming straight from that video and coming to this video, no, I did not let any names slip in the past video. A lot of people thought that when I said Giorgio, I was talking about my roommate or my landlord, and that was their real name, and I let it slip because I gave people like fake names so I don't get sued. But for those of you who don't know, Giorgio is the name of my best friend, not my landlord and not my roommate. Basically, the way that I found the place that I ended up living at was through a Facebook page for share houses. In my past Storytime video, I mentioned that basically there were two levels to this apartment slash house that I lived in. Upstairs, it was a 2-bedroom, and downstairs, it was a 1-bedroom. And the two were very, very separate. They each had their own kitchen, own bathroom, own bedrooms, things like that. The only thing that we shared was the laundry. I lived upstairs with the roommate that I talked about in my past video, and there was another girl who lived downstairs, and she was really great. Really enjoyed living with her. And basically, she shared the ad for this share house online on a Facebook page, and I found it and I was like, hey, that's in my price range, that's in a nice area, I'll have a look into that. So I texted the number that was on the ad and I was just like, hey, can I come and inspect this place? And the person who owned this house turned out to be this little old lady. She probably would have been in her 60s or 70s. I'm not exactly sure. She didn't speak great English. Like, you could understand her most of the time, it just wasn't her first language. Anyway, so I inspected the house, and like I said in my past video, it looked pretty much fine. There was a few things that I didn't like there was some cigarettes and it was a little bit messy, like dishes in the sink and stuff like that. But after I finished the inspection and I got home, I got a call from the landlord, Linda, and she said, hey, I just want to let you know that the girl that's living in there currently will be moving out in a month if you live there. And I was like, okay, sick. So I would only have to live with the girl who was in that house for a month. Anyway, I decided that I would move in, so I went to my landlord's house actually to sign the contract. When I did this, I went with my mom. She came with me, and my landlord asked me to bring my mom. I think my landlord thought that my mom was paying my rent, which she definitely wasn't, but she's like, yeah, bring your mom along, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, okay. And I was glad to bring my mom along to look over the contract and things with me as well. Just letting you know that this was a private lease. So it wasn't through a real estate agency. It was purely through this one lady who owned this house. So I went to her house and we went through the contract and it seemed fairly okay. My mom thought it was okay. I thought it was okay. It was just a very, very long contract. But Linda, my landlord, made it very clear that everything was legal, that it was through a really good website, and she had to pay all this money for it to be able to be good and blah, blah, blah. Like, she really emphasized that it was all done correctly. And I was just like, okay, sweet, no worries. Just keep in mind that I haven't moved out of home before, haven't lived in my own rental before. And so I signed the lease and I got the keys. And also another thing was, I said to Linda, hey, I want to move in, but I don't want to move in for another 2 weeks. Would that be possible? And she was like, that's totally fine. You can sign the lease now and I'll give you the keys, but you only have to start paying rent when you move in. And I was like, okay, sick. That sounds incredible. And the reason I did this was because I wanted to live with the roommate for as little amount of time as possible. And Linda had told me that I was only going to be living with her for a month, which meant that if I moved in 2 weeks, I would only have to live with her for 2 weeks. So 2 weeks go by and I move into that house and everything is pretty much fine, except for the fact that the roommate that I was living with was not great, as you can tell by my past story time, and she wasn't moving out in 2 weeks. I think 1 week went by and I was thinking, wow, I wonder when Linda is actually going to tell what was the other girl's name? I can't remember. Tell my roommate that she has to move out because she said that she only had 2 weeks left. And she just didn't say anything. So it was just longer than 2 weeks. And while I was living with that roommate, there were a few things that happened that I just didn't completely agree with. The roommate that I lived with had a cat, and the cat caused a little bit of damage to the house. And every time there was damage caused to the house, I would always take a picture of it and send it to my landlord to just say, hey, this is what's happened. It wasn't me, just letting you know, because I didn't want it to fall back on me when that roommate moved out. And every time I sent her a picture of whatever happened, my landlord would reply with something like, can you just tell her to fix it? For example, there was one time where part of the blind fell down because the cat was like pulling on it and part of the blind just fell down. And so I took a picture of it, sent it to my landlord, and was just like, hey, just letting you know, this is what happened. And she said, oh, can you please just tell your roommate to just fix it, please? And I was kind of like, that isn't really my job. Could you tell her to fix it, or come and fix it yourself, because that's kind of what landlords do. But no, that didn't happen, and that happened multiple times. So this continued to happen, and I just kind of let it go. Basically, one day I was getting my internet installed, and my mum helped me out, and my mum accidentally locked me out of the house because she left my keys inside, and I didn't have a way to get in. So I called my landlord being like, hey, do you have a spare key that I could use to get back into my house to be able to get my keys? And she's like, no worries, just come over, because I still had my car keys, I just didn't have my house key. Just come over to my house, I have a spare pair of keys, it'll be fine. I'm like, okay, sweet. So I drove to her house and I went to go pick up the spare pair of keys. And this is while I was still living with my roommate. And she was basically just having a chat with me while I picked up the keys. And she was also really, really lovely. Like, she always came across as a really lovely lady. Basically, when I was chatting to her at this time, she was just asking me about my roommate, just asking what was happening and if it was bad and blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, yeah, she is quite messy. It's pretty bad. And she said, oh yeah, she's the reason why the other girl moved out before you moved in. Like, the landlord was like, I know for a fact that other people have moved out of that house because of this person that you're living with, but I didn't tell you that when you rented the house. I'm only telling you that now. And I just thought that was, like, I understand why she didn't tell me, because I probably wouldn't have moved in. But it's just so annoying that she knew for a fact that other people have moved out of the place that I was living in because of that roommate. And she told me, oh, it's not that bad, she's gonna move out in 2 weeks, which she wasn't moving out in 2 weeks, and all of these things to make me move in when she had no intention of making that person leave in 2 weeks. Another red flag that I had was there was one point where I had to show the contract that I had for this house, for the lease, to an official person to just prove that I was paying rent. So I sent them across the contract, and they basically said, wow, this is a very interesting contract. I've never seen one like this before. And I didn't really think much of it because I've never seen a lease contract before. I didn't know what it was supposed to look like. And she basically just said, it's not normal. And that should have been a huge red flag for me, but I just didn't take it on. You'll find out more why later. Anyway, another thing that was really difficult was I knew that the roommate that I was living with had to move out, but my landlord told me that I wasn't allowed to tell her that I knew. And it was just very difficult because I was just sitting in this house living with this person that I knew was gonna get kicked out as soon as her lease was up, which I don't even know when it was gonna be at that stage, but I wasn't able to tell her or hint at her or anything like that. And my landlord also told me, when I asked her when the other girl was moving out, she said, oh, she's gonna move out at this point in time, but I'm not gonna tell her until right beforehand, because I know that if I tell her now, she'll stop paying her rent. And I don't know what's worse, that my roommate was probably not gonna pay her rent for the last few weeks that she was gonna live there, or that my landlord was just not gonna tell her that she had to leave. In the end, Linda ended up giving my roommate, I think, about 2 weeks notice that she would have to move out. So my roommate, as much as I didn't enjoy living with her, I remember coming home one day and she was just like sitting on the couch, and I was like, hey, how was your day? And she was like, really terrible. And I was like, oh, why is that? And in my head I was like, oh, she must have been told that she's gonna have to move. And then the roommate says, because I just got fired from my job. And I basically just said, oh my gosh, that really sucks, I'm so sorry. And then she said, also, Linda just told me that I have 2 weeks before I have to move out. And it was just like a double kill. Like, that is a rough day. Like, I felt very bad for her. No matter how much I didn't enjoy living with her, that is a rough day. And And it just sucked that I knew the whole time, but I couldn't say anything. And she just, yeah, I don't know. It was a bad situation. Anyway, so the roommate ended up moving out and I was living by myself for a while after that. Just so you know, I was told that I was only going to be living with her for 1 month, and then because I pushed it back for 2 weeks, it was only going to be 2 weeks according to the agreement that my landlord had told me. And I ended up living with her for a month and a half. So 4 weeks more than I originally thought I would have to live with her. Also, I know that from the Rental Tenancy Association, it says you have to give 2 months notice if you're not going to renew a tenant's lease unless they breach the contract. So I don't know if my roommate breached the contract because of her mess and the damage that she caused to the house, and that's why she was able to give her 2 weeks notice. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, like I said, she moved out, and after that, because it was a share house, my landlord started looking for a new person to move into that house with me. What bugged me about this was she kept bugging me to try and find a new tenant to live there. Like, she was trying to convince me that it was my issue and my responsibility to find someone to fill that spot, which it definitely was not. In a share house, although you can say, hey, if you know anyone who wants to move out and live in this area, definitely let me know. Obviously that's something you can do, but like, you can't force your tenant to find someone else to live in that house. Like, that is your responsibility as a landlord. But she was texting me all the time saying, can you put posters up at your uni, because I only want students to live in this house now because all the older people that are living here aren't treating the place properly. She was asking me to post it in my uni groups, and I think she didn't realize that my university was quite far from the place that I lived. It wasn't like around the corner or something, so people that went to my university probably weren't trying to move there. And I tried to tell her that, but she was like, okay, but can you still put posters up at your uni and like things like that. She also asked me to put posters up at my uni during like the mid-semester break, and I was kind of like, it's holidays, no one's gonna be there. She's like, oh, well, can you still do it? I'm like, I'm not going in on my holidays to put up posters in my uni to look for someone to live in your house and pay your rent, because that's just not my responsibility. Also, while she was looking for a new tenant, there were multiple times where she had inspections for people to come and look at the house, but did not give me the correct amount of notice. Let me see if I can find the text messages. I don't know if I still have her. Oh, another thing that I didn't mention, I'm just going through my old text messages so I can see. Basically, the girl who lived downstairs, apparently she wasn't answering phone calls from our landlord. And so my landlord kept asking me, do you know if the other girl who lived downstairs is home? And I said, hi, I'm not sure. I'm not home at the moment, so I can't check. And she said, okay, thank. And then she messaged a few days later saying, I'm trying to talk to the person who lived downstairs. Her phone is on answering machine. Can you tell her to call me back if she's at home? Thank you. And I said, hi, she's not at home at the moment, but I'll let her know if I see her. And she was basically just trying to make it my problem. And I was like, this is not my problem. This is your problem. And there was also one time where she called me. And so I obviously answered, and she's like, hi, it's Linda. Can you please go downstairs and check if so-and-so is home? And I'm just like, what? And she's like, can you go downstairs and check if they're home? Because she won't answer my phone calls. And I was like, okay. She ended up not being home, so it wasn't like an issue. So I just texted her back saying, I went down, but she didn't come to the door. It doesn't seem like she's home, sorry. Like, what do you mean? Like, that's not my responsibility at all. Then, like I said, she started doing inspections without giving me much notice at all. This is an example of that. She texted me at 4:28 p.m. and she said, hi Rachel, how are you? I will be there around 5 p.m. to show the room to a girl. Sorry for the short notice, but she just asked to go and see the room. Thank you very much. And I was just like, excuse me? Also, at this point in time, I was halfway through building an IKEA shelf. So there was tools all over the ground, there was parts all over the ground, because I assumed that I just had the afternoon to myself. I was in my pajamas, and she was just like, yeah, I'll be there in half an hour. Can you please just like leave and like make the house all neat and blah, blah, blah. And it was just so frustrating, because obviously if I knew I was having an inspection, I would have neatened the house, made sure everything was perfect, because not even that the house was messy, but it definitely wasn't up to an inspection standard. Like, some of my clothes were just like on the ground of my bedroom, and I don't know, just little things like that that you would clean up if you knew someone was coming over. And so it was just so frustrating that she gave me half an hour to clean the whole house. I was just so mad. Anyway, I ended up just rushing around the house and cleaning it and getting it all sorted, and then I just like went to a park near my house and let them do the inspection, and then I went home. And about 2 weeks later, she messaged me again. I remember where I was when I got this message. I was driving to work. I was like 5 minutes away from work, and I knew I was going to be at work pretty much all day. And when I got to work, I checked my phone, and this is what the message said. Good morning. If it is by you, I will there after lunch to show the room to a girl. Thank you very much. And by this stage, I was so annoyed because there had just been so many things and so many times where she hadn't gone about things in the right procedure. And I am not the person to stand up for myself, but I just needed to in that circumstance. I got to work and I was talking to my manager about it, and she said, no, they have to like legally give you like 24 hours notice before they do any sort of inspection or like enter your house at all. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. So I looked up the law, and I'm pretty sure you have to give either 24 or 48 hours. I think it's 24 hours notice before a landlord or like real estate agent can enter your house. So I messaged her back saying, good morning, I am currently at work and will be here all day. I was not expecting this, so the house is not as clean or tidy as normal. I would prefer you to give me more notice so that I can make sure the house is neat and clean before people come over, but as I am at work, I cannot clean it before lunch. The law says 24 hours notice should be given. This would be best so the house can be in the best condition for viewing by potential tenants. Thanks. Because like my message suggests, it would be in both of our best interest if the house was in perfect condition before people came and viewed it. And also just the fact that she thought she could give me like a few hours notice, because she messaged me at like 10 a.m. and she said she was going to be by after lunch. That only gives me like 2 hours, and because I was going to be at work, it's just so frustrating. Anyway, she messaged back, sorry, is my mistake, don't stress, it will be okay, I promise. Next time I will let you know in advance, just don't worry and think positive, it is going to be okay. This was so frustrating to me because I wasn't there like stressing out like, oh my gosh, I'm so worried, blah, 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 blah. I was just like, this is not okay, you need to give me more notice. And after that situation, she was very, very nice to me. But I ended up moving out a month after that or so. Anyway, I sent an email saying to her that I was moving out and just giving her my reason why in the correct amount of time that I needed to give. Anyway, when I emailed her, I said, hi, I'm leaving, blah, blah, blah. Can you please give me a, what is it called? A reference or whatever, so that I could give that to my next landlord who I was gonna rent from, just to say, hey, she's really clean, she's really neat, she's a great tenant, 10 out of 10 would recommend. And so I asked her for that and she didn't send it to me. So I had to send her 3 emails asking her for this reference that I could give to a future landlord. And after those 3 emails, she sent me a text message saying, to whom it may concern, this is a letter of recommendation for Rachel, spelt my name wrong, who rented my property from this date to this date. She is a respectful, clean, and tidy tenant, and I was always very happy with her renting my property. She was a pleasure to deal with. Kind regards, Linda. But she texted it to me. What sort of landlord is going to want to see a text from my previous landlord saying, yeah, she's a good tenant? Like a text message, like I need an email to be able to put that in my application for future places. It was so frustrating to me, like a text message that is so unprofessional. Anyway, getting to the end of this story, I know this has been so long, I'm so sorry. She messaged me like the week I was moving out. She said, hey, how are you going? This is your last week as a tenant in my property. Can you please let me know when I can get the keys from you? Thanks very much. That same day, I went and delivered the keys to her house. So I messaged her saying, hi, I've dropped them off at your house. The place has been fully cleaned and is very tidy. Thank you. And she said, thank you very much. Good luck. I will contact soon after I check the place. So I thought all was fine. Then I emailed her maybe like a week later just saying, hi, when am I gonna get my bond back? Because if you don't know, when you rent a house, you obviously pay your rent and things like that, but when you first move in, you pay a bond, which is an amount of money that the landlord should lodge with the RTA, I'm pretty sure, and they'd take hold of that money basically until you move out, and if the place is left in a good condition, then they give that money back to you. That's how a bond works. And obviously if you cause damage and things like that, you don't get either your bond back or your full bond back. So I basically messaged her saying, hi, when am I gonna get my bond back? And she messaged back saying, I'm not gonna give you your bond back. And here's why. When you left, I went and checked the place and the shower was dirty. If I still have photos of how I left the house when I left it, I will include them here, including a photo of the shower. So let me know if you think this is dirty enough to take away my hundreds of dollars that I paid in my bond. But anyway, she also said, and because I wanted you to stay at the house and then me come over and check the house with you and then you give me the keys when we left. So basically she wanted me to stay at the house and then us do the final inspection together so she could like run through things with me before I left. And she was basically saying I'm not going to get my bond back because I delivered the keys to her house, which firstly she just never stated in any way, shape or form beforehand, and it was not in the contract or anything like that. So that just made no sense at all. And I basically emailed back saying that's not fair because that's a dumb reason to take away my hundreds of dollars. But she just never replied to anything that I sent her from then on. And so I lost hundreds of dollars in a bond because my shower was dirty and I didn't hand my keys in the right way. Anyway, I ended up just deciding that it wasn't worth it. It just was not worth the hassle hassle to go through to get that money. I ended up filming the last Storytime video that I filmed, and I uploaded that, and then the girl who originally lived downstairs just messaged me being like, yeah, I saw your video, which I don't even know how she found it actually, but anyway, she found it. And she was just kind of like, that really sucks. Did you ever get your bond back from Linda? And I said, no, I didn't. Why? And she's like, I didn't either. And we basically just realized that it turns out that Linda probably wasn't giving anyone's bonds back and trying to give them really stupid reasons as to why she wasn't giving them back. And that just made me so mad because she must have been getting a lot of money out of basically scamming young uni student girls into hundreds of dollars. So that was really fun. Also, the girl who lived downstairs messaged me telling me that when she was leaving, Linda tried to get her to pay like extra rent, or saying that she didn't pay rent in certain weeks and stuff, and was like, you need to pay me more rent, you're behind in your rent, blah, 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 blah. And the girl who lived downstairs had to give her like actual receipts that she'd paid all her rent because she was trying to get more money out of her, which I just think is so unprofessional as well and so rude. And it just sounded like she was really, really money hungry. But basically, in the end, I found out that my contract, although it was legal, it wasn't necessarily legit because my bond and my contract had never been lodged with the RTA, the Rental Tenancy Association, which means that in legal terms, I have no rental history. So when I went to move out again and apply for a new house, for example, the house I live in right now, I had no history of renting, and the text message that I got as a reference doesn't count for anything. So I basically started from scratch, and that's why it was so difficult for us to find a house, because none of us had rental history, because mine just didn't exist. And also that means that technically my money got scammed out of me and I wasn't able to get it back because the RTA wasn't ever involved in it, so they weren't able to lodge anything. It was just a big mess, and I got scammed out of hundreds of dollars by my landlord. So that is the story of my lovely little old lady as a landlord that turned out to be not so lovely after all, and I'm so glad to leave that in the past and to live in a house now that is actually legal and run by an actual real estate agency rather than just a private owner, because in my opinion, I would never recommend moving out into a private rental house unless you know the owner as like a close friend or something like that, and you know they're not going to scam you, or at least you know all of the Rental Tenancy Association laws and things like that so you can back yourself up, because I didn't as an 18-year-old. So yeah, just keep that in mind if you're going to rent from somewhere that's private. I would definitely recommend going with like actual real estate agents, and I've had a great time so far with my new agency. So anyway, that's the end of this story. I hope you guys did enjoy it. I hope it lived up to your expectations that you guys have been begging me to give you for the past, I don't even know how long. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in my next video very soon. Goodbye.